My name is David Miles. This is the Charlevoix Stories Project, a continuation of the Charlevoix oral tradition. I'm sitting with Gary Stuzman today. Gary is a former band director here in Charlevoix. He's a Charlevoix native, I believe, born in Charlevoix.
Yes.
And can you give me a little bit of your background?
Yes, I was born here in Charlevoix in the old hospital on Hurlbut Street, and that kind of dates me, tells you a little bit about when that might be. And my family, it just happens that my mom just passed away at 99.8. We almost got her to 100.
Mm-hmm.
And when I look back at the history of our family, and her father homesteaded 80 acres down the road from us, and we're about to build a house on that homestead to live the rest of our life in as we close out our chapter.
What was her maiden name?
Vratanina. My grandfather's name was Joe Vratanina, and I'm hearing incredible stories about he being one of the second bankers in town whenever the bank couldn't come up with funds because the loan to debt ratio wouldn't work. Bob Bridge would say, "Joe, you better go see Joe Vratanina."
Uh-huh.
And we have a paper trail that's just amazing of amortization schedules and people that he helped, and some pretty known names around town that he helped get their property.
And the name Vratanina sounds like Eastern European stock.
Yeah, I think that there was a whole group of people that came from Czechoslovakia, and they landed in Weyerhaeuser, Wisconsin, which is about on the same parallel the same horizontal that we are on. Mm-hmm. And they then migrated from there to here, a whole group of people from Czechoslovakia. And you'll know the name Pletka and Slezak, to name a few, and that was Grandpa's good friends.
I see. So you were born here. Your mother married Joe Stuzman?
Yes.
And then can you give us a little bit about your educational background here?
Sure. I was very fortunate to go to school here in this building. In fact, this was my elementary school building where our library, our very beautiful library, sits today.
This was our kindergarten room.
This is the kindergarten room, and I was in this fish pond that we're sitting right around. I'm sure several times, especially if I was told not to.
Well, that was a rite of passage for every kid.
Every child that came through this school, the fish pond is a great memory. Goldfish, I mean, it was just amazing. And being able to open a new high school in town in '63, that was really fun, to move out of this building into the new building, which is now Round Lake Education Center. Mm-hmm. That was quite an experience, and I can't imagine growing up anywhere else.
Well, that's true. That's how a lot of Charlevoixites feel.
Yes.
Okay, where did you get your education?
Well, when I graduated from high school, I grew up on a farm 5 miles south of town, and I feel very blessed that was my lifestyle when I was younger. And on the farm, I became the fix-it person. My dad really knew all the workings and the ins and outs of the farm, but if something broke, I had to get it running again. So I had actually enrolled for the diesel mechanic school at Ferris. Mm-hmm. And I was all set to go to diesel mechanic school, but I had a 1.5 year wait, and I couldn't wait to get into school. So my best friend at the time, Bruce Crokin, said, "Why don't you go to Northern with me and let's become band directors?" And I said, "Oh, that sounds cool." So we went to Northern and paid for a year of college and went to school. I mean, back then the entrance exam was show up with money. Just to reflect on that, having the opportunity to go to school at Marquette, Northern Michigan University, it was a wonderful school, and the faculty was young and vibrant, and I just can't imagine. Everything sort of has worked out in my life as far as that, for that point. And the day that I graduated from college, somebody said, I think there's a job opening in Flint Northern, you ought to check it out. And I called the superintendent of schools there and on a Monday, and I interviewed Wednesday, and I started the next Monday. So I went right from college to a AA high school with orchestra, and I had my first experience directing a pit orchestra for the musical Showboat. And I mean, it's just like, wow, how can this happen? And then Mr. Odmark, my former director here at Charlevoix, he was just amazing. He was a magical teacher.
I know.
And we can probably get into that a little bit as well. But because of his influence, the love for music was really strong. And he came to me at a music convention, and I had only been at Flint Northern for a year. And he said, Charlevoix is thinking about increasing the program with an assistant. Would you consider coming and working with me? And that was the hiring process. And I said, about 2 seconds it took me to say yes. So I came up and interviewed the superintendent and principal and met a few board members and got hired. And so I was able to go right from Flint Northern after a year and a half to come and teach at Charlevoix for the next 10 years.
So to go back a little bit then, it wasn't your original intent to become a music director.
No, I was going to be what they call a mechanic,
So
a wrench.
even though you had been under Clarence Odmark in the band program and you had been inspired by him, it was not even your original intent to follow
Correct.
in his footsteps.
Correct. But we had a large class of musicians that went on to be band directors or professional performers. And one of them is Odie's son, Bob,
Right.
who is finishing up his horn playing career at the Kennedy Center. Right now they're doing Wagner's Ring cycle,
Yeah.
and that's about the most major thing you can do. So it's just amazing how things all work out.
Yeah, he has played under some of the world's greatest conductors,
Correct.
and I think he's been in probably every orchestral performance at the Kennedy Center Honors.
Correct.
So he has seen his share of very notable people.
He told me the other day that he finished a musical performance, and they all went down from the pit to the green room because that's where the way that's set up, and everybody's locker, instrument locker, is in the green room. So they all go there and sit and talk. And he said that he had a great performance, and he went down, and all of a sudden it hit him that he had played his first performance there in 1973 in the Kennedy Center. And he said everybody at the table hadn't been born yet, that he just finished the performance with.
That's a 43-year career now.
Yes, yes,
Wow, a Charlevoix High School graduate.
yes.
Okay. So when did you first become connected with the city band? Was that part of your duties to conduct it when you started here?
Yeah, what happened is Clarence Odmark took that program, the city band, over from Max Smith. Max came here, and I'm not sure of the dates, but I think the late 30s or early 40s. Max Smith was the director, and whoever was the director of the high school or public school also was in charge of this, just kind of by osmosis, was in charge of city band. So Clarence had a long running, directing the band from 1946 up to 75. And in 75, in 72, he turned it over to Evelyn Wojcik and I. We have a picture in our historical information of her and I being handed the baton by Odie in 1972. So that's when.
Did you alternate concerts in the park then?
No, Ev really liked to play. She said, "You direct." So I'm really happy that Ev said that, because I love directing that band. It's really a rush. Really a pleasure.
Well, to give you some idea of what we might call the circle of life, where the new band shell is in East Park was actually where an old band shell was. And that old band shell was constructed as an open air platform that became the old Chamber of Commerce building. The one that looked like a Chinese pagoda.
Yep.
And you go down the stairs like this. It's certainly not handicapped accessible. And then of course, when the chamber moved over to Mason Street, that was then torn down. But now the new band shell is right back where the old band shell was.
Yeah, things do come full circle. And when you see some of the pictures of the proposed, pavilions, and the one that they had with the back facing Round Lake and the people sitting up on the bluff and looking out, and they had this beautiful design made. Well, who would have known that now we have that, and we have one of the finest performing pavilions in all of the Midwest. I mean, there's not many like it.
True.
That have the view and have, when they built that structure, and the architect that decided that they do these undulating rock formulations and not have anything square, have it all tilted. He is a good friend, and he said, I just saw that, and I said, I wonder what it would look like if we just did it without having anything ever being level. And the people that created it said they didn't know what they were going to do when they go back to working in the buildings where they have to have the rocks level. It was just amazing. But they did it right, and they got the acoustics. There's a hot spot in that facility that when you go and talk to the group, the voice comes right back at you like it was amplified 10 times.
Really?
Yeah, it's just amazing.
Well, I know people on the north side have told me that they can sit out on their porch in the summertime and they can hear every single thing that's going on in the band shell. They don't even have to come downtown. The acoustics are so perfect.
And we have the water involved, and it skips off that.
Right.
It's
well,
really
I'll
amazing.
throw in an anecdote of my own here. When I was in high school, I was asked by Odie to play in the band, the city band, in the summertime, and it was nothing more than a green platform that sat down by the water, close to the water's edge. So it had an east-west orientation. Well, we used to have these long, like paper clips or
music clips.
Yeah, music clips in case of wind. Well, it was a perfect, beautiful night, and we were sitting there, and all of a sudden the western sky got really dark, and it was like a wall came through, and before anybody even knew what was happening, the wind came and picked up practically all of the sheet music, and it ended up
deposited.
It ended up floating in Round Lake.
And they were probably playing stormy weather just for fine measure.
But it didn't really interrupt the concert because we had to run for cover.
Yeah, that group of people that I was talking to you about that graduated with me, most of us started in the band when we were in 7th grade, the summer of our 7th grade year. And it was just amazing to have that opportunity to play with such quality people, and older people. And back to Max Smith, when we talk about the past of the band, Max directed the band and it became very good friends with a student in town by the name of Bob Gill. And Bob Gill was the very first student to play in the city band, and Max had to fight to get him a spot. That's how. And when Max was in his last days of his life, Bob had had a stroke, and they were in the same facility. And then the people at the facility say you couldn't separate those two. In the last 3 weeks of their life, they spent the days together up here at American House. And I mean, just an amazing story. And Ev Wujcik and I were talking that we need to go spend some time with Max. We need to get some of the history from him. And we never made the connection that he had left Central Lake, had been moved to, American House, and then that Bob had a stroke and was moved into American House. And they said they were inseparable. They were like young friends, but they were in their last days, and they couldn't quit talking about how special that time in their life was. So music plays an incredible role in human evolution, if you will.
Right. Well, I played in the city band with Bob Gill too. And just as a sidelight, he was our famous builder in stone, Earl Young's son-in-law.
Yeah.
So
amazing.
Bob had quite a legacy here too. Can you give us any kind of idea of what it means to be the leader of the band? What are your duties other than actually conducting, recruiting musicians, etc.?
Okay. Well, what happens, the way we're set up now, we have a really competent librarian, Gail Baldridge, who has a paid position to organize all the music for the summer. And in the past, it was the duty of the director to take care of all of that, and that's a sizable job. It's very difficult to stay up on and keep up with. So as it stands now, those of us that are going to direct the band, and I'm bringing in the new director that is in at Charlevoix High School, Tom Harder, is going to start assuming responsibilities of the band little by little. As he's ready to take on more, he'll take on more. But like this summer, he'll direct 2 numbers, and then I'll do the rest of them and intersperse possibility of former director Jane Bennett and a really good friend of ours who has his doctorate in conducting, Dr. Tim Topolevsky, who directs my wind ensemble that I've created, and he's going to do some this summer as well. So they've already picked their music. Gail already has it in the folders, and when the people come in for their first rehearsal next Tuesday, they'll have their entire 8 weeks of music handed out to them in order that it's going to be performed. And then we'll work for 8 weeks rehearsing everything that we're going to play in the summer.
How many days a week do you rehearse?
Just one. 2 hours on Tuesday nights, starting at 6:30 to 8:30, and we do that nine times before we start our concerts in the park on the last Tuesday of June.
Oh,
So we go from June until the 3rd Tuesday in August.
So you do
8
the whole
concerts.
season beforehand?
Yep.
I see.
Yep.
Do you have rehearsals then during the week before the concerts?
Just Tuesday nights. And these people are good players. They don't need to, and we don't allow a lot. We don't have time. I mean, people are busy. Lives are really busy. So it used to be that you rehearsed on Monday night and you played on Wednesday night.
I remember that.
And then we got a whole bunch of sailors in the band. Well, Wednesday night is sailing night. You can't have a band concert on Wednesday night, so we changed it to Tuesday night, and it was convenient for everybody. And right now what we do is we go down to the pavilion at 6 o'clock, we set up, and at 6:30 the rehearsal starts for the concert that night at 8. And we rehearse for an hour, and all it is just a spot run through. And at 8 o'clock the downbeat happens and we play the concert. So there are a lot of people that come and listen to the rehearsal. They listen to what we go through to put things together. And it's an art, I think, in itself to you have to, in a community band, it has to be fun. It has to be quality, but it also has to be fun for the audience. So you got to pick music. Our goal is to have people leave that concert whistling or humming a tune, or it doesn't take much to have all of a sudden a flashback. You hear a song and people will think back, that was 1945, I was out there on the boat. That happens to people, and that's what we want to have happen.
What kind of feedback do you get from the audience after a concert's over?
I make a point to go out in the audience and thank people for coming, and I hear just wonderful. That's why I go out there, because it really makes me feel good to go out. Very few complaints. I mean, I don't hear complaints. Of course, I don't listen to them if I do. This is not my psyche. I'd probably turn it into a positive. But I think people really enjoy it. I think the city of Charlevoix has had a relationship with the band program forever, and I don't know that they realize how important their commitment to us is. As far as the relationship with the city, well, the first group that we have a picture of is 1904, the Charlevoix Cigar Band, and that was the first where they called it Charlevoix City Band, and we have records of payments by the city to the band director for $50 a concert. And so when I went in to make a presentation on the value of the band to the council, I had one of the former council members say, "You're way underpaid." I said, "Thank you." based on what happened in I think it was 1930, maybe 27. We've got the paperwork. I mean, it's just the minutes of the council, and they were paying the band $600 for the summer.
Well, the band actually, a band in Charlevoix actually goes back into the 1800s.
Correct.
Because we have the Charlevoix Coronet band, the boys band.
Correct.
We have the Jarvis Juvenile Band.
Yep.
And then I think the city band, we have a picture from 1905. It actually shows
Says city
the
band
word
right on the
yeah,
drum.
on their uniforms.
We have just been appointed, and we have the honor of being recognized as a centennial band for the whole country. And we're one of a handful of bands that have been given this designation from the Sudler John Philip Sousa Foundation Award. And it comes out of Chicago by the Sudler family, who are of Sears Tower fame, and they're people that have sponsored band-related programs for years and years, and they have a big program. And so Charlevoix just got that nomination, and I have a brochure that I'd like to hold up for the camera, so at the end we can show what we have to show for all these hours of work. It's really quite exciting to be a part of that. This is a certificate that the Charlevoix City Band just received from the Sudler Foundation. It's actually the John Philip Sousa Award of the Sudler Foundation, and it's awarded to bands that have provided entertainment and music for communities for a century or more. And all our records show that there's been a band going on in Charlevoix from the late 1800s all the way up through. We haven't missed a summer, except a brief spell when World War II was going on due to the shortage of men, because at that time men were the main part of the band. And I think also a brief time during World War I, but very brief. There's been music going on here in Charlevoix. So this is prestigious to have this award. We're really proud of it. We're excited. And here's the connection about awards like this come a lot of times because someone knows someone who knows we have a band that deserves this. And our connection was Gail Brechting, who is the director of, she's an elementary music teacher now, but she was the assistant director of bands at Reith Puffer Schools in Muskegon and has been a longtime friend. She came in my last year teaching at Charlevoix High School. The first time around was 1979, and we had arranged to go to the Harlem Tulip Festival. And the band performance was being put together for the Tulip Festival. Gail Halliot at the time had graduated from Petoskey and was taking her student training, teaching training in Alanson. And I found out about her through Jane Bennett, who was also a student teacher then. And I hired Gail to get my band ready for that marching performance. When I saw her work with the kids, I said, if I can get her hired, I'll continue to work here, because it was 1979, there were 430 kids in the band program, and I couldn't do it alone. And so, as it turned out, she didn't get hired. She went on to be a world-renowned band director in the southern part of the state, and she's now on the board of this historic band. And you only get on that board unless you're something really special as a band director. So had her and I been able to work together here in Charlevoix, oh, I can't even imagine what it would be like to.
Well, a concert in the park is really part of Americana. And when I used to work at the Lodge Motel, I got several comments from people of what a joy it was to come to a small town that is carrying on this tradition. Because a concert in the park was part of American life for decades.
Correct.
Back in the
Especially
1800s, early 1900s.
And even during the wartime, when that was a very bringing people back together. It's really amazing to be able to be a part of it and to be a part of that history. That's really exciting. Mine started in 1957, so it's been a long run.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not going to end anytime soon if I can help it.
Well, that's good. What, in your opinion, is the value of a musical education? What what does learning, there's such a controversy now because music is not the part of the curriculum that it used to be. And if you were to argue for a musical education for a student here in Charlevoix, anywhere, what would be your argument for it?
I think that we're seeing that come full circle and come around to the point that people do realize the importance of the arts, not just music, but the arts in general. Because if you give young children an opportunity to express themselves, whether it be writing, speaking, painting, singing, and of course the band side of things. I never thought of anything but band. If you come and talk to me, I don't want to talk about vocal, I don't want to talk about anything. I want the band to be off the charts. That was my focus. As I've gotten to retirement age and stepped back away from it and looking at it, the realistic part of it is that the arts are what form our body, and they're what make us who we are. And if you strip the schools of the arts, you are doing a detriment to human race. And so we're seeing that exact thing happen, that people are understanding the value of the arts. And there are unbelievable number of documented studies that show people that are in the band or sing in the choir or play a stringed instrument or are part of that group atmosphere, their brains develop different than people that don't have that experience. Because remember, when there's 100 people in a band, everybody has to be on the same page. There's nobody sitting on the bench in the band.
So it's a tremendous lesson in discipline, a lesson in cooperation,
yes,
a lesson in listening to each other,
correct,
even though you're not using words.
You're listening and you're adapting and you're doing yin and yang, ebb and flow, and you don't know you're doing it. I stood in front of my band, my middle school and high school band at Charlevoix High School and middle school yesterday for the first time since I left. The 7th and 8th grade kids were just giddy. They were out of their tree about the fact that I came back and had a chance to see them again, because they're so passionate about their music. The older students have that same passion, they just don't show it. I mean, it's not cool to let your emotion show, and it was really cool to see that difference. But to have the opportunity to stand there and to follow the band program now, because they're under the guidance of an incredible director. He's young, he's dynamic, he's smart, and they love him. And when you have that kind of thing going on, you can't put a number to it, you can't measure it, because it's life-changing for people.
Well, and I know when Odie came here to Charlevoix after World War II.
He was a violinist.
He was a violinist, yeah, and he was a very good violinist too. He had the type of personality that you just were drawn to him. Everybody in town was drawn to him. Nobody ever disliked Odie. And he had a magical quality about him for being able to teach
the masses. I mean, it didn't matter whether it was vocal or band, because he had a great choir program going on too.
Right. And it was just like it was an automatic learning process with Odie. And one of the things I remember, and it's the first time I had ever experienced this, we were getting ready to go downstate to a competition. And we came back, we went to 3 of them in high school. And we came back with blue medals from each one, first place.
Probably went to Lansing, didn't you?
Lansing, Ann Arbor, yep.
Out of high school. I went there too.
So one of the
that was a big deal.
One of the things we were playing was a band arrangement of the themes from the Beethoven's Eroica Symphony. So this particular rehearsal, it was like the planets were in the proper alignment. Everything went perfectly. Yeah. We had never played like this before. And when Odie put down his baton, there was total silence in the room, and we just looked at each other saying, what in God's name have we just done? Of course, we couldn't repeat that in the finals downstate, but we didn't have to. We came in first place anyhow.
Yeah.
But it was just the most incredible experience that you have done something that approaches perfection. And we couldn't
And
have
that's
done
what
it
you're
any
striving
better.
for all the time. And
Right.
the place to have that performance is right where you had it, because that lifts your ability to do it again on stage. But like you say, it's very difficult to get to that level again. But that level is so far above most groups. You know, you still, when you go on stage, you put it on automatic pilot, and you've already had the experience of a lifetime. So now it's just like, oh, no big deal. We'll just do it again, and it comes off really good. You know, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what our goal as a director of a band, and it doesn't matter whether it's a duet, a soloist. We want to have that person perform at the highest level they possibly can, and have everybody on the same page. That's our goal. Now, is that possible? Occasionally, like what you just described.
It's just
And
like a lightning strike. You never
Yep.
know where it's going to
I've
hit.
had that happen. I had it happen in 1979. The band I had in '79 had 36 seniors, and we played a Nixon piece, Elegy and Fanfare, Class C school. We had no business playing. It's a AA number, and we played it so well. It was just like having that experience. It's just, you don't need to do it again because you've done it, you know. And there's nothing like it.
Right.
And to have that, that's part of maturing and part of development of and the kids today are still talking about that era of band that we had when Odie and I were here together, and I was coaching track as well as being the assistant to Odie. And you think the kids today, I mean, it's 2016. We're talking 1970 to 79. And daily I run into people that say, do you remember, you know, they haven't forgot it because it was so special.
Do you think that there's any danger that Charlevoix would ever lose its music program?
No,
It's very strong.
very strong. The administration is committed to it. Our new superintendent is just an amazing human being. And our principal at the high school is on a level of very few administrators, and she understands the importance of what the band does for the atmosphere, for the climate in the school. If you got a good band program, a lot of things fall into place. Kids are happy, you know, it's satisfied. They're not looking for other things to do. They're committed. Because when you've got a really strong program, doesn't matter whether it's a basketball, football, whatever, you know, people are engaged. And to be engaged, you got to work at it. And if you were to walk into Charlevoix's band room tomorrow, you would be blown away by the atmosphere in that room. It's just absolutely off the charts.
Well, that's good to hear.
Well, it really is. I mean, but you got to hire the right person to have that happen.
Right.
And we did it.
How many times did you take your band downstate? Do they still do that?
Yes, yes. Every year, it's been a common occurrence. There's been a little bit of a lull in the program, and but it's on its way back. Tom Harder says that in 2 years he'll have 100 on the field, and when I started with the band 2 years ago, I had 14. So
Whoa.
it's amazing what has happened. But it's all about getting the students exposed, getting them excited about, and then giving them something of value to be involved in. And that's where we're heading. The program, all the administration has to do is give him the kids, schedule, make the schedule work.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you don't think that Petoskey doesn't make the schedule work for the band.
Oh, yeah.
There's over 300 kids in the band, and they put the schedule first for the band,
Right.
and then they build it around that.
Yeah, and they've got a
That's what they need to do here.
tremendous community
It's
support over
not
there.
something that people want to hear, but it's the way it is.
Now, at state competitions, do they still give out blue ribbons?
Yes, yes. The band this year, the middle school band got first division at festival, and the high school missed it by 1 grade. First division at district festival.
Uh-huh.
Now they're not going on to state because they're doing other things, but that's a good decision, I think, to wait. And build the program, get a good solid foundation.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm really excited about where they're heading.
One thing I'd like to bring up with you is the rise in women now, both in leadership positions and as soloists now coming into their own as far as band goes. What has happened in the trumpet world is we used to think of Maurice Andre as it during his long, distinguished career. But now two of the top, if not the two top trumpet players in the classical music world are a British woman and a Scandinavian woman. So can you comment at all about how women have come up through the ranks? It was not unusual for a woman, a female, to play a wind instrument, a horn, trombone, trumpet, in a band, but to become a soloist. And now we have Joanne Folletta, we have Marin Alsop leading the world's top orchestras. So where did the transition come that women started to break through the glass ceiling?
I think the thing with with the people just accepting the fact that there are some fine performers. Doesn't matter whether you're a man or a woman. If you play, you should be recognized. And we happen to have two of the finest women trumpet players that have come out of Michigan right here in our backyard. And one of them is my colleague, Evelyn Wojcik, who she can hold her own with, when she goes out and plays in California or when she's visiting places, people just go, whoa, where'd she come from? Because that's how good she is. And I was very fortunate to work with a young lady by the name of Rachel Belair's that went from Northwest Academy, where I taught for 17 years. She graduated from there and went to New England Conservatory. And her trumpet instructor at New England was Louis Stout, the head of the trumpet section for Boston. I think that's what his name was. And when I asked him just how good was Rachel, he said, well, I've taught for 30 years at New England and she's in the top 3%. And I just went, whoa. And so that tells you that it's just amazing. You don't have to be from somewhere to be somebody. You just have to apply yourself. Mm-hmm. And we're just blessed to have that happen here in little old Charlevoix.
Right. Well, I know the tuba player for the Philadelphia Orchestra is a girl that she graduated from the University of Michigan and went right to Philadelphia, which astonished the whole music world.
Yep.
Well, then you have the Vienna Philharmonic, which is still all male, and I don't know if they're allowing women in on a temporary basis, maybe a harpist here or maybe a substitute cello there. Mm-hmm. But there's still the attitude that the top echelon is a man's world, but that's beginning to break out.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. It's cool. It's the way it should be.
And you encouraged?
Oh, definitely. We have a young lady playing tuba at the high school right now that is going to be a good one. She doesn't know it yet, but she is. She's got all the makings, and the tuba is bigger than she is. She's just a very slight built, might be 90 pounds all wet, if that. Uh-huh. And really fun to work with her and see her progressing, and it's really cool.
Good.
So.
Good. Well, like in a lot of professions, the fact that you're a woman now is no longer going to hold you back.
Yeah, that's right. That's
Times
great.
are changing, and they should.
Go girls.
Okay, Gary, this has been a pleasure. Is there anything you want to add before we wrap it up?
I feel very blessed to have been able to come here today and share with you the passion for what I think is one of the most important parts of a child's life is the arts. I just happen to be a part of one of those sections of the arts. And yeah, I'm a band guy. I've been a band guy all my life, and I'll probably die a band guy, but it doesn't matter whether you're playing jazz or Dixieland or straight symphonic band music. It's just a wonderful experience, and it gives you chills. I mean, you get a rush over and over when things come together like what you experience, and that happens. I think David Holland expressed it to me the best. David Holland was the violist. His wife is the harpist with the Interlochen Arts Academy, and David was a viola teacher and instructor at Interlochen, and he's 6'7" or 6'6". He doesn't need a podium when he directs a group. He's so tall, but he was a world-class quarterback for Indiana University, and he said, I threw several 60, 70-yard touchdown passes in the big house. And he said, I've heard the roar of the crowd, and I know the kind of chills and the kind of feeling you get. It's like a euphoric high. He said, I get that every time a student of mine plays the right notes. And it happens over and over. What can you say?
All the times you went downstate for the state competitions, off the top of your head, do you know how many first place?
Boy, I don't. You know, it's lots. I mean, it's a big thing, and I can't say the number. I just know that when you say Charlevoix band program in the band world, people go, "Oh yeah, Charlevoix, they were great." So the tradition in this town of music has been going on and on and on, and it's not going to stop anytime soon. His wandering eye, he had that muscle problem in his eye, and
Yeah.
you never knew where he was looking, because he had this, you know, his peripheral vision had to be incredible, because the one eye, in fact, you look at the picture down there, what I'm hoping is that we can get that made into a bronze plaque like we have down there for Odie, and have this go up right alongside it, bronzed, because that is huge. That's huge. It was just funny being, you know, growing up in the system and being invited back. I mean, I was just in the right place at the right time so many times in my life. And I was told in '93 by the person doing the interviewing at Charlevoix that I had lost touch with kids and wouldn't be able to do the job. I tried to get my old job back, you know, 13 years after I had left it. And because of who was doing the interviewing, I didn't have a chance. And so that was like a dagger went in my heart to be told that. But it wasn't true, and I knew it. But then Northwest Academy opened up in '96, and you all know what happened there. It just went nuts, off the charts. But I'd never worked with 28 kids before. 24, I always worked with 100. Can you imagine what it's like, you know, working with 100 and trying to get them? It's like herding a bunch of turkeys. You know, I mean, it's just so hard.
Or cats, herding cats.
Oh yeah, just unbelievable. And then you go to that little school, and we started out in '96, you know, and we didn't have a program. And in 2004, we were on stage at Hill Auditorium. We were named one of the finest small school bands east of the Mississippi. That little school up there, and Rachel Bellairs was the lead trumpet player, and Gina Ati, I just had lunch with her Sunday afternoon, and she left Charlevoix High School to come to Northwest to follow Rachel. The year that Rachel graduated, Gina came in as her follow. She wanted to follow Rachel because she was an aspiring trumpet player as well. And you know, the talent that we have around here is just amazing. And if you take control of that, and you herd those cats and you get them all going in the right direction, and then you get parental support behind it, it's unbelievable what you can
What was
achieve.
the occasion for the appearance in Hill Auditorium?
Well, the MSBOA, where I was at when Odie invited me to be his assistant, they have a state meeting every year where all the directors from all around come together, and you meet and you talk about issues to do a better job. And they select bands based on their performance level at state festivals. We started getting first division ratings at Northwest Academy in 3 years. So we started it from scratch in '96, and '99 was our first one at state. We got it in Gaylord. It was the same week that my dad passed away on Wednesday. My band played on Friday and got a 1 at State Festival. But that was the beginning of, ones for about 6 years. And it was incredible. And that band was so good, you just turn them on. It's like turning a switch on. And every kid was just dedicated beyond belief, and the parents, but you only had one on a part. So they knew they had to play. They couldn't hide behind anyone. It's different than playing in a band with 100.
So you had to divide these kids up amongst the different choirs of the band in order to have a balanced sound.
Well, yeah, you have to, if you have a band of 28, we have that right now with our wind ensemble. I just formed an adult version of that band, and it's all our best players in town, or in the area. And my director buddy directs that group, Dr. Topolevsky. We have, basically you have a flute choir, right? And then you have a clarinet choir being sopranos, bass, and contra, right? So you have the full, and then you have a sax quartet, 2 altos, tenor, bari, and then you have a brass choir. In this case, we have 3 trumpets, 4 horns, tuba, 3 trombones, and baritone, and then percussion. And man, they play. I mean, that group is just like off the charts. But they're all adults. And we picked up the best, high school students to fill it out. Give them an honor to play with somebody really good. So that's really cool.
How often do you perform for the public?
We're going to we have one performance in the winter and one performance in the spring. Our next performance with that group will be the 22nd of May at the Episcopal Church. We'll fill the Episcopal Church up. And it'll be amazing. The new director at the high school is playing a sax thing. It'll just blow your mind. He's one of the best sax players that ever came out of Central Michigan. And we get a chance to show him off. So we're doing that.
Great.
Yeah.
You don't let any grass grow under your feet, do you? Well, I remember when I was in high school and we were downstate, we didn't stay overnight. After the competition, we came back, and it was quite late. Mm-hmm. And practically the whole bus was asleep after the initial excitement. We got into town, and we were met by a cavalcade of cars.
Oh, yeah. Fire engine, you name
honking
it.
Their horns. Yeah, it was just like this grand procession into town.
Yeah. And that's cool. I mean, there's nothing like that.
Yeah.
And that's called support. And that's called community. And I think that's what we have here that's very special. And we have to keep fostering that so that the young people can experience that as they grow. Because there's nothing like it.
No, there isn't. Truthfully.
Nothing. And we can talk about it for a long, long time.
Right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
We're talking now with Evelyn Peters-Wojcik, and she is also, I believe, a Charlevoix native.
I am.
Born in Charlevoix?
I am.
You're a few years younger than I am, and your brother Clarence is a few years older than I am. But Clarence himself was a very accomplished trumpeter. Did you get your inspiration for playing the trumpet yourself from Clarence?
I did. Yeah, because when I wanted to get into band, I wanted to play drums like everybody else. And Odie, of course, said, "Is Clarence your brother?" I said, "Yeah." "Oh, he plays trumpet really well. How about you sharing a cornet?" And I said, "Oh, okay." It was like, but I did. And then I caught on, and I'd go home, and he'd, practice with me and show me things. And
well, of course, then the rest is history, because you became one of the most accomplished trumpeters, I believe, in the history of the whole Charlevoix High School musical education program. Where did you get your education after high school?
at Northern Michigan University.
The same as Gary did.
I was a senior when he came in as a freshman.
He said to me on the phone the other day that he's always been trying to catch up with you.
Yeah.
You're 3 years ahead of him.
Right.
And you're always 3 years ahead of him in everything.
Right.
And he really hasn't caught up yet. Okay.
Right.
So you got your education there. Where did you then start teaching?
I started in Clarkston in 1965. And that was when teachers could go just about any place. So I was there for 2 years. And then I went to Grand Blanc, and I went to Willow Run, which is down by Ypsilanti.
Right.
And the last year I was there, it was getting kind of rough. They tarred and feathered the high school principal. And
Literally?
yes, literally. And so I decided I didn't want to be down there anymore or downstate someplace. So I came up here and interviewed in Traverse City. And of course, they hired someone that was right out of college. They didn't want anybody with experience, you know. So I was headed back down to Willow Run, and I went out to have a bite to eat with Marilyn Novak. We were talking, and she said, my dad's still looking for a 5th grade teacher, but he's looking for a man. And I said, well, that isn't right. I said, I wouldn't mind doing that, but I'm not a man. I said, go home and tell him. So she went home and told him, and I got a call that night. I had an interview in the next morning, and I got the job here as a 5th grade teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And so that one year I taught 5th grade, and then I went up to 6th grade and beginning band. And so I taught beginning band here for I don't know how many years.
Well, those were the days, I remember when Odie came here, his basic education was in music, but they gave him, I think, high school civics to teach also.
Right.
So did you come in cold as a 5th grade teacher, or had you had
No,
any
no, I
education?
had a double major in college. I had
Oh, I
music
see.
and elementary education.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so you weren't coming in blind
Oh,
to
no.
what you were doing.
No, no.
Okay. When did you get started in city band?
I think I started in city band in probably the summer of 1956.
56?
Yes.
So you must have been
In the
12,
eighth
13
grade.
years old?
8th
13?
grade.
So that's when Odie was bringing in even the youngest kids, even from the junior high school.
Only the good ones, David.
I'll buy that. So he recognized your talent early then. What was it like being in the band back then? Were you intimidated at all?
I don't think intimidated. You know, I felt pretty proud to be in there with all these old people. And I, you know, did the best I could. Made me practice because I wanted to be really good. And I looked up to them. John Crokin was in the band.
Who was a marvelous trumpeter.
Yes. And so he was my mentor. I listened to everything he played and his tone and his style. And I said, I want to be like him, you know. And so that was really an inspiration.
Well, it's interesting you should say that because Gary went to Northern with his son Bruce.
Yes.
And together they decided that what they were doing they really didn't like, so let's be band directors.
Yes.
So there's a connection between all 4 of you there then. Another complaint that we had was this was just a platform painted green.
It was green, right. I was on that
And-
platform.
If there was any kind of a breeze from the west, it went over the people, hit the band, and took the sound out into Round Lake.
Right.
So you could be playing away up there in a nice breeze,
Nobody
and
could
nobody could hear a thing that you were doing. So that's when they got the idea to move the bandstand around over toward Neff's store.
Right.
So that it would come out over the park and put a backdrop on it. Now, the original bandstand did not have a roof on it,
Right.
the stone one that they put in. Then they put in the one that looked like it had elephantiasis, if I may say so.
Right.
These horrible pictures. They want pillars. They wanted to imitate the Earl Young style, but they
Right.
went overboard on it.
Right. I think you didn't like that one, huh?
No, not at all. And from what I heard, I never played under it, but it had this wavy roof inside.
Yes.
And the sound went up from the band and right into the fish pond. It was very, very bad acoustics that you had to live with for, I think, 17 years.
Probably something like that.
Yeah. And then, of course, the new band shell went in, and the acoustics are so perfect that people on the north side can stay home and listen to a concert now without having to come downtown.
That's right. That's unfortunate. They should come and sit in the park.
Right.
See how beautiful it is.
Gary told me that you and he were appointed as co-directors for the city band afterwards, but you liked playing so much. This was after Odie retired. You liked playing so much that you preferred to remain in the band,
Right.
and he took over the majority of the band.
He needed me playing in the band.
But you did a
And
lot of,
I wanted to play rather than direct, yes.
but even
I
when
did.
you did take over the band, Can you tell us something about the responsibilities, the total responsibilities that a director has for the band, such as choosing music, organization, recruitment, etc.?
And that's what it is, yes. And back then, the music library was a real issue. I remember working with Odie when I came. It was 3 summers I came home from college, and that was my job. And I probably shouldn't say this, but I was paid from the school for doing the job, and I also was getting credit from Northern for that class.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that was good.
I know.
A win-win situation.
But anyway, so the library was a big issue because we had to take everything out of the folders and put them back every week
Time consuming.
and refill them with the next week's program.
Mhm.
Very time consuming. And he worked a long time doing that. And so I was helping to do that. So that was a big responsibility. That's probably one of the biggest responsibilities. And because the organization is there. I mean, you know, everybody comes to rehearsal and they play and everything is great. The concerts at that time were put in the paper, so everybody knew what was going to be played.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, the band director just, you know, has to direct the band and, of course, pick the music. But the music is pretty, you know, we all know what people enjoy hearing.
Mm-hmm.
When they're sitting in the park. We can't play some big, heavy thing all the time because...
That's what Gary said. You want them to leave the park whistling or humming something that they have just heard.
Yes.
Now, one thing I didn't know was that you get together for several weeks, starting in late spring, and you start rehearsing the whole repertoire week after week.
Mm-hmm.
So you know it pretty well. It's in your mind
Mm-hmm.
before you go into the park. So you only have to have a little bit of pre-rehearsal right in the band shell,
Mm-hmm.
which is almost like a concert for the early comers.
Right.
So, and you've got the music under your skin, and then you can just go ahead and do it.
Mm-hmm.
What have you experienced with feedback from your audiences? How do they react to the fact that they have come to a town that has concerts in the park? It's Americana.
Well, I think most of the people that come here, it's a very unique thing to have in the park, to have that. They say, you know, a lot of people have said, what is that big thing, that big dome you have in your park? You know, they don't, as they come down the hill, they don't know what that is. And then they just think it's fantastic to have something like that in a small town. And this is probably one of the best concert stages around Michigan or any place, really. I've played in many, but none like this, as big and
Okay.
as elaborate.
So we might even be able to say that the band shell down there exists because of the popularity of the band concerts in the summertime.
Sure,
They wouldn't be there if we
That's
didn't
right.
have those.
that's right.
Gary gave us pretty much of a good rundown of the history of the concerts. And what is your take about this huge honor that's coming up for you that you're getting from the John Philip Sousa Foundation?
Is that the Sudler Award? That,
Yes, the Sudler Award.
Yeah, right, right. Well, it's an award that is given to bands that have been in existence for 100 years or over, and we have been. So I think it's great that we've been in existence that long, you know, in this place.
And you're only one of 10 bands in the state
Right.
that have won this.
Mm-hmm.
So it's pretty much a feather in your cap.
Sure. The audiences in the park are usually a little older. There are some children. There used to be children that would run around the pond down there because they had, you know, fish and things. But for the most part, they're older people, and they really enjoy the music that we play. So I don't think anybody that's in their 20s, maybe, not a lot of them in their 20s, are going to come down and listen to concerts like that. They'd rather hear pretty much the same. It's full.
You tell me the whole thing.
It's full. I mean, the little amphitheater steps are full, and people bring their lawn chairs and blankets, and I'd say it's a pretty filled up area.
Well, I have driven by several times while the concert is in progress, especially coming from the south, and they're lined up on the sidewalk back up there. So it's a
Yeah.
pretty popular
Some don't
thing.
want to walk down and, in the grass. And so they stay up there and put their lawn chairs up. Yeah, very popular.
And I was telling Gary, when I worked at the Lodge Motel, some of our guests were just astonished that they had stumbled upon this place that has concerts in the park. They thought it was something that was so passé, and to go down and actually hear a band of that quality, it really sort of made their vacation. And they had to go home and tell their friends all about it. You'll never
Right.
guess what we heard.
Right, that's
Right.
great, yeah.
Okay.
Well, the older people will come and hear our music, but the younger people, and because of our band, the city has a Thursday night concert night too, where they bring in people from other places. Maybe bigger names or something, I don't know, or unfamiliar, they're not the city band, but somebody else,
Different types of music.
Yeah, right. And the younger people tend to go there and listen to that. And we get our steady audience. Pretty much, through the years, you could see people that have been in there for, 20 years they've been coming to listen. And if there were any old enough, I could probably say the last 50 years I've seen people.
Well,
Right.
Evelyn, during your lifetime, there has been a change in the perception of women as musicians. The band used to be a man's world up until probably the middle of the last century. And then it was not unusual for me going to school to have my classmates who were female be part of the band.
Cutting edge, I've been in it a long time, but not recognized and not accepted into the man's world, so to speak. It was really hard to be a band director when I was young. Hard to be part of the man's world.
So you
So it was a struggle, not only as a band person, but a band director, a trumpet player. They have their ideas of what girls' instruments and boys' instruments,
True.
So, the cutting edge, yes. The girls are out there and they're real. I know quite a few that have really come up. The tuba player from the University of Michigan I played with in the band in Traverse City, she was phenomenal tuba player. And we just said, oh, she's going to go places. Well, she was, at that time, still in high school. And so we just kind of watched her. And there she is. It's wonderful, wonderful. And like you said, Allison Balsam, and there's Elizabeth Mary Bowden is another one, and Tina, I can't pronounce her last name either, but and they're famous. I went down to Grand Rapids to see Allison Balsam.
Did you really?
Yes. Oh, it's just fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Well, I'll tell you the generation I came from. In 58 and 59, I was in the University of Michigan marching band. At the peak of William Ravelli's career, the peak of his fame. And of course, the turf in the Michigan Stadium was sacred to Michigan tradition. Only a man's foot was allowed upon it.
I know.
And we were getting a band in that had female flag carriers.
Ah, okay.
Ravelli almost had a conniption fit because a woman's foot was going to sully the grass of the Michigan Stadium. That's how severe it was back then.
I know.
And even we in the band were wondering, where is this man coming from? But because of his power, because of his position, we had to humor him. And George Cavender, who was the assistant director, had to ease him through the pain of seeing women on the ground floor of the Michigan Stadium.
And I thought I liked that guy.
As a musician, of course, he was right up there in
Oh,
the Toscanini mold, but he was of the
yeah.
old school.
Yeah.
And if you were a Michigan man, which I am, proudly am, you know the feeling
Yeah.
of what it means to be so totally devoted to that school and even its old traditions.
Yeah. I wanted to go to either there or state when I graduated. I wanted to look into those schools, but they didn't take women in band. And
That's
I wanted
right.
to be in band. I didn't go as a music major, but I wanted to be in band because I liked it so well.
That started to change just about the time I left Ann Arbor in the late 1960s.
Yeah. When I graduated in '65, a friend of mine, the drum major, went down to Michigan to get a master's degree. And he said, "Why don't you come down here and get a master's degree?" And I said, "Oh, I can't do that." You know, he said, "Sure." He says, "You can play." He said, "The women are playing down here now." And he said, "You're, you know, just as good, if not better than any of them. So come on down." Well, I wanted to get out and get a job and make some money. I was tired of being poor. So I thought, well, I'll make some money first and teach a little while and then go.
What do you think is, there's so much controversy now about schools cutting back on their programs, and music and the arts are taking it on the chin in a lot of places. But Charlevoix seems to be keeping this tradition strong here. What do you feel is the main value that a child beginning music education takes with them by going through this discipline and learning music? What does music do for you?
Well, there are all kinds of studies that what it does to the brain, what music does to the brain as far as helping, you know, the nerve synapses interact and all kinds of things. For one thing, that's the technical reason. The other reason is that you have to discipline yourself so much to be in a band. You have to be able to provide something that's 100%. In other classes, and they've used this as an example, but you can get an A- in English essay, you can get a B+ in something, and still see that you've done a good job. In music, you have to do it 100%, otherwise it doesn't work. Because you're playing with other people. It has to be perfect. So you're after 100%. You're not going to get A-. So.
Have you ever had the experience of working with your kids and all of a sudden everything gels and you cannot do it any better than what you have just done, and you're sort of stunned at the result?
Sure. Absolutely. Yep, a lot of times.
Good.
A lot of times, even with the little ones,
And do they realize what they've done?
I think so. I think they do. It's a feeling that they don't get often because they're so used to external rewards. Even from the time they're in elementary school, they get a sucker for this or a piece of candy for this. Or it's all external. Music is something that's an internal award, a reward that you get. Is when you play and you get that feeling that you're just talking about, that you can't do it any better. It's just there. That's internal.
Right.
And that's what we're after. And music is something, and art would be something else that you could get that from. You can't get that from getting an A on a math test.
That's a very beautiful way to put it. So, well, thank you, Evelyn.
Okay.
It's been a pleasure. And thank you for all you've done for Charlevoix over the years with your music and working with everybody else that you have worked with in the music programs.
All right. Thank you, David.